Hello everybody, my name is Rohit. I take physical education on behalf of PrepSchool. In today's session, we will be learning how to write record book and how to prepare your project report. Now before we get into this, let's see how your weightage for practical record or how your weightage for practical part of your syllabus is divided. Your practical syllabus weightage is divided into 5 different categories. First you have physical fitness test which carries 6 marks. Then you have proficiency in games and sports, which again you'll have 7 marks. Then you have yoga practices, which you'll have 7 marks. Then you'll have record project file, again 5 marks. At the end you'll have viva, which will carry again 5 marks. Again here when you talk about physical fitness test, is nothing but the same effort test which we did last year. Last year in the 11th standard, when we performed AFA fitness test on the ground during the practical session, that same test will be conducted on you, and based on your physical fitness, out of 6, the marks will be provided to you. After this, your proficiency in the games and sports will be checked, and here that particular sports proficiency will be checked which you have selected out of the given list by Cbse. Next, you will have yogic practices in which your yogic skills, yogic asana skills and kriya skills will be tested, which you learned throughout your 11th standard and what you are going to learn this year. Then you will have record and project file, and in the record and project file you have to write the given curriculum, what all things has to be written, we will discuss in a while. Then you will have obviously viva and voce. In the viva you will be asked all questions related to all these elements, related to yoga, related to the administration of physical fitness test, related to your proficiency in sports, whichever sports you have taken, its in-depth questions will be asked. So that's how your practical part will be conducted, practical exam will be conducted, and your 30 marks will conclude based on the results of all these 5. Then now let's move on to the writing part of your record. Practical one will be AFA youth fitness test. When you look at that, AFA youth fitness test will have 6 different tests in that, which you already learnt in 11th standard. That has to be written there. Then you have to conduct that 6 tests, that is AFA youth fitness test, on yourself, and you have to take your pictures, and along with your pictures on the left hand side, that is a blank sheet of your record book, you have to write the values on the right side parallel to the image of whichever test you have shot. After that you have to conduct practical number 2. Practical number 2 is you performing yogasanas. You can minimum perform any 4 yogasanas of your choice, and you have to perform that and you have to take pictures and paste it on the left side of your record book along with the write-up on the right side. Write-up will include the procedure of that particular asana, the benefit of that and the contradictions of that. Then you have practical number 3. In practical number 3 you have barrow fitness test. So basically barrow fitness test is again one of the other youth fitness test which is conducted on students or kids at the age of 13 to 20 or 22. You have to conduct the test on any 10 candidates, and you have to take their pictures just like you did for AFA fitness test and yoga. You have to take their pictures along with their data after conducting the test, and you have to mention that and add that in the record book. So basically you have to dedicate one particular sheet for one particular candidate. For example, if you have double-sided book, on the left side where the blank sheet is there on the record side, you should paste all the images of the person you have conducted the test on the left side. On the right side you should have all the data or the record or the values that you have collected for that particular person's test, that you have to write on the right side. So always remember, the image that you take should be parallel to whatever test you are mentioning along with that, or whatever test you have conducted. Next you have practical 4, that is again Rickley and Jones test for 5 senior citizens. So when you talk about Rickley and Jones test, it is senior citizens test. So the test must be conducted on senior citizens age, that is 60 plus age. You have to conduct the test on 5 senior citizens. The procedure is the same as we learned, and I will be teaching you the procedure again in one different session. But again the format is the same of barrow test and yoga and AFA test. You have to again take the picture of that those 5 senior citizens. You have to paste it on the left hand side, and on the right hand side you have to write their values and their data and whatever values you have conducted after conducting the test. So basically one sheet you have to, like I said, one sheet you have to assign to one person. You cannot paste 2 persons picture on the same sheet. That means if you have double-sided sheet, one side where it's a blank sheet, you have to paste image of that person whose name is written on the right side, rule side of your record book. In the rule side of your record book, if you write 1, a person's name is there. You will conduct total, how many tests are there in Rickley and Jones? In Rickley and Jones, you total have 6 tests. So you will write test number 1, you will write, and then you will write test number 2 and test number 3, all the 6 tests and its value. Parallel to those values, you have to paste the images of that person performing. So 6 tests will be there, so 6 images will be there of that person. Then you turn around the page, and next page should be dedicated to that second person. So like that, each person that you conducting the test should be dedicated one particular page. Don't clutter one single page with multiple subjects and multiple subjects, test and images. That's very important thing that you have to keep in mind. Now, moving on to the next part, you have practical number 1. Let's take a deeper dive into each practical and try to understand how you will write that. First, write the procedure of AFER test. So practical number 1 was what? The practical number 1 was AFER Youth Fitness Test. So when you talk about AFER Youth Fitness Test, how many tests were there? You have studied this. You have total 6 tests under that. So you have to write the procedure of that 6 tests. You have to start off with what is AFER, from where it originated, what is its procedure. After you are done with the theory write-up of that, in the next page or after some space, you have to write the second part of the practical. That is, you have to conduct the test on yourself. Here, remember, you should not conduct this test on anybody else. AFER test must be conducted on yourself. You conduct the 6 tests on yourself. Take somebody's help and ask them to take an image of you performing that test. So basically, if on the right side, rule side of your record book, if you are writing 6 tests of yourself and the values, your image performing that particular test be parallel to the write-up on the right hand side. So if you are doing pull-ups on the right hand side, parallel to that pull-ups on the left hand side, you should have your image performing the pull-ups. Don't make sure that the sequence of your images are matching with the sequence of the test that you have listed on the right hand side along with the values. Next, moving on to next practical, you have yoga. Now when you talk about yoga, this you have a little bit of freedom over here. You can choose any particular favorite asana that you have, easy one or tough one, whichever you like. You can choose any 4 asanas that you like, and then you can write the write-up on the right hand side, do the same thing, take your pictures and paste on the left hand side. Now when you talk about any 4 asanas, make sure that it is still, I would recommend that each asana that you pick is from 3 different categories. Now you may remember that I have taught you 3 different categories of asanas: relaxative asana, meditative asana, corrective asana. So when you paste images, try to take each asana from different categories. Though you have the freedom to choose any asana from those categories, this is my recommendation. You choose those asanas like that. Once you have taken the asana, selected the asana, you perform that. You take a picture of that. On the right hand side, on the write up side, you write the procedure of that particular asana. Then you write what all contradictions are there in that asana, and then you write what all benefits are there in this asana, and parallel to that you paste image which you have taken. Okay, so that's how you complete your practical number 2. With that you can wind up your practical number 2, and minimum, like I said, you have to write 4 yogasanas, but maximum it depends on you. If you want to write more, you can write more also. Next, practical number 3, you have to conduct Barrow test. Like I said, Barrow test also is a youth fitness test. This has to be conducted on children from the age of 13 to 20 to 22. Basically, this is the range you have to conduct the test. So you have to conduct this test on 10 candidates. Now, the points to be noted, the same points that are repeated that I told early, I'll repeat once again. All those tests and how to conduct the Barrow test, I will have a different session. I will have a particular dedicated session to that. So we will get there. And but for this sake of understanding how to write the record, let's stick on to the format right now. So basically, Barrow test, you have total 3 tests under that. So if you are conducting test on 10 different candidate, each person you are dedicating 1 page. So on the right hand side, you will have test number 1. That first of all you write the name of that person name. Then you will write test number 1, test name, and how much value did it got. And below you have to write whether he was average or good or he was extraordinary. Then you write second test. Then you write third test. After you write the write up, all the 3 tests write up and its values, parallelly to that you have to paste that person's image performing it. So while you conduct the test itself, you have to take the images, so you don't have to worry about taking the pictures later after you're done with all the write up. So make sure that you take picture while you conduct the test for 10 different candidates. And like I said, Just like you did for after test, you start off with the theory of Barrow. Now the theory of Barrow will be shared with you, so you can write it from there. You have to copy the theory of Barrow test, so you have to write the Barrow test there, how it is conducted, the administration of it, how it is started, and what all things are included in that. After that, the stage comes where you conduct the test on individual persons and write its scores along with the pictures on the left hand side. Okay, with that we will wind up practical number 3. Now when you look at practical number 4, that is senior citizen test. In other name, it is also called as Rickley and Jones test. This you have to conduct on 5 senior citizens. Again, how to conduct this test, the write-up will be shared with you. You can refer that. Now, Rickley and Jones basically has 6 tests under that. That means each person will have 6 images and each person will have 6 total write-ups. So basically, you are conducting the test on 5 different senior citizens. So 5 into 6, you have total 30 images. So you should have 30 values and 30 images. And how to align it, I have already explained. Parallelly, write up parallelly to the image. The same principle which you followed in Barrow test, you have to follow the same technique and same format in Rickley test also. Write up also is the same way. You have to start off with the theory part, the procedure, how to write it, and how to conduct the test. After you conduct the test, then after you write the whole write up about it, then you have to start off a section where you will be mentioning about the records of 5 senior citizens that you conducted the test on, and then you write the value just like you did for the 10 candidates of Barrow test. Senior citizens also you do in the same format. This is how we wind up the practical part of your record book. Now let's move on to your investigatory report. I hope you understood the practical part. Now basically, what is investigatory report? Investigatory report is when you conduct an investigation on a particular topic or a particular subject and you prepare a report on that. Now here investigation means you are conducting a research on that particular kind of topic. So here we are doing the research on the particular sports that you selected in 11th standard. A list of sports were shared with you in 11th standard. So whichever sports you have taken that day, you have to prepare a report on that. First, you have to draw a well labeled diagram of whichever sports court or field. For example, I have taken basketball or you have taken basketball. You have to draw a well labeled diagram of basketball court. After you have drawn well labeled diagram of basketball court, you have to write this rules, terminologies, skills required, and history, and all those extra details to that. Now this is a cloud idea of what all things will include in your investigatory report. In systematic, there is already a template shared with you on how you should write your how you should arrange your investigatory report. Apart from that, I will again show you once at the end of this presentation how to do that. You can refer to that as a guideline. But basically, this is what you will have in your investigatory report. You will have information related to your sports, starting with its introduction, its history a little bit, its background, its rules and regulations, common injuries and how to treat them, international and domestic players. All those things will come under that. The sequence I will give you in a while. So now let's look at the groundwork that you have to do when you conduct this test. Project report writing groundwork. Like I said, the first one, choose your preferred sports that you already done. Second step is collect the raw data by researching. Don't start by creating a Word file and copying and pasting data from your Google without reading and without analyzing the data. Create a blank folder. In that, dump all the raw data that you collect. Research online, collect data, collect images, collect different PDFs which are related to that topic, collect different links and collect it all together in a particular folder. Once you collect raw data, after that you can sort that raw data and refine it and see what is good, you can sort it out, what is good, what is not good, and you can analyze it. You can reframe certain sentences, so it is not just a copy paste project, rather you are actually inputting your work in that. So it's important for you to rephrase all those things and write it in your own words. And so after you do all the sorting and analysis and finally refining and coming up with the final set of information that you will be adding into your record book, you can finally come up with this step, that is layout and the arrangement of the data. In this section, you will be arranging your data which you already sorted and figured out based on the template that is already sent to you. Okay, the template has been already sent to you on how to arrange it and all. Just the data that you have collected, raw data that you have collected and filtered it out and finally sorted, that data has to be finally arranged once the data is ready, not before that. Many people do this mistake. Before they have the data, they open up a blank Word file, they blindly dump all the files from internet. You copy paste the, they Google a particular topic and copy paste all the data from there without reading it, without refining it, without going through it. That should not be done. Okay, make sure that you have a set of raw data and then you filter it out, read each element and read each paragraph, filter it out, sort it out, reanalyze, reframe those sentences, and then you implement that in your report. And finally, final stage is compiling of the data. This stage you will basically align everything, you justify everything, you see if the design is okay, everything is fine, everything is right in place, and then you compile the data. So basically this is the sequence that you must follow for preparing your investigative report. You start off with the cover page, certificate, acknowledgement, and table of contents. These 4 things are already shared with you. The template has been already forwarded to you, so it will contain almost these 4 elements of the content. You have to actually work from this section. This section is from where you start on. You write the introduction of the sports, you collect the data about the information of the sports, the introduction of where it started, the history a little bit. You write the history of it. If you want, you can combine these 2 chapters, introduction and history, but basically it's better to keep it separate. You give the introduction and an idea of that sports, then you give a history of it when it was started, then you give rules and regulations. In the rules and regulations section, it's very important part again in the sports. If one person wants to play a sport, he must know the rules and regulation of that sport. So it is important to include that topic also. So that is again the third in line. Then you have equipments required. What all equipments are required to perform or practice or play that kind of a sport. Then you have skills required. What all skills are required to play the particular sports that you have taken. After that, you have common injuries and treatment. What are the common injuries that take place in that particular sport? Now, injuries are not defined, for basketball, these are the set of injuries, or for tennis or table tennis, these are the set of injuries. It's not like that. It's not like a certain kind of injuries has been defined. It's just that based on the history, based on the analysis of a lot of matches and the history of sports, few of the common injuries that we see in a particular kind of sports is taken out, and that we study as common injuries of this particular sports. Okay, so any injury that is not in the list of this particular sports also can happen in that particular sport, but we are talking about general cases, what particular injuries generally take place in that sport at international and national tournaments, which we have seen in the history. So those injuries and how to treat them, that one section has to be included. Then you have game formats. Now when you talk about game formats, for example, in cricket we have 2020, we have test match, we have one day. Like that in other sports also we have different formats. You have to mention those formats or those categories in that section. Then you have tournament. You have to mention your national and international tournaments. What all different kind of tournaments comes in there. You have to mention its name and how long it goes. A brief idea or brief information about that. After that, you have famous international and national players. You have to mention who are some of the famous players and famous international and domestic players. Who in that particular sports is very famous and internationally famous domestic player, or who in that sport is internationally famous. So we have to you have to write all those details in that particular chapter or section of your investigative report. Finally, you have to write bibliography. In bibliography section, you have to mention all the references. Bibliography or reference means what? Bibliography means from where you have pulled the data, the source of your file. Now, the investigative report that you prepared, the data has been collected from different sources. It can be primary source, it can be secondary source. It could have, you would have collected from different sources. So it's important for you to mention from where you have pulled the data. Now, one more thing you have to keep in mind, one more thing that you have to note is that many people, when they write bibliography, they don't mention the full link. In case if it's an internet article, you have to mention the full URL of that article. Okay, So just writing google.com or just writing wikipedia.com won't do it. You have to actually write the full link of the article. That means if somebody clicks your link in the project that you have submitted, if somebody types that link in the web URL, it should take that person to the same article from which you have pulled the data, not the website of that article. Okay, it's important. So whenever you mention the bibliography, make sure that you mention the address properly and fully. So if you are mentioning any magazine, so you don't write just the name. Suppose if you pulled out information from India Today or Discovery magazine, don't just write Discovery magazine or India Today. You have to write that magazine's name, then you have to write its issue number and the month, and then you have to write the page number from where you have pulled the data. That way a particular person, if he wants to see from where you have pulled the data, can locate that particular source file and see that. Okay, so these are some of the important suggestions and important tips that regulations that you have to follow, important guidelines that you must follow to complete your record book and practical investigatory report without any kind of trouble. Make sure what all points that I have told, you keep that in the mind and incorporate that in your record book and practical investigatory report. I hope you have understood everything that I said. With that said, let us look at some of the guidelines that you can follow to write your investigatory report or prepare your investigatory report well. First thing, like I said before, don't blindly copy any things from Google and paste it. Always check that data. Always check the data, because these days internet is accessible by everybody. The data that are being posted is not certified. It might be anybody who is posting, so you don't know whether it's true or false. So it's always important to check. Now, second thing is that verify data. Always verify the collected data from various sources. For example, if you read an information from a particular site, I'm not telling that is 100% wrong. What I'm trying to say is that if it is a blog post, or if it is a third party or a private website which is not owned by government, they are not obligated to pass on the right information. So it could be wrong. So keep that information. Rather, go and check at more different sites. If the data matches, that means obviously whatever that data you collected is right. So always cross check the data whichever you collect before finally importing that or implementing that in your investigatory report. Next, preferably use government certified website. Like I mentioned, government websites are always good for any kind of research work, because the information that is published there or is given there is 100% right and factual and accurate to the point, because it is given by the government and they are obligated to pass on the right information. So the information in those websites is considered certified. Moving to the next point, make sure the collected data is up to the latest. Now, when you go to internet and when you check certain records, for example, Olympic gold medal list or certain other award list or something like that, sometimes what happens is that the award list or the award list or any kind of list, such list that you see in Wikipedia and other sites might not be updated till date. Maybe somebody got an award 2 weeks back, but it's not updated on the record on the internet. So you will copy paste the same data table and implement. But when you go to the final test and when the Viva person asks you that question, you may be surprised by knowing that the data has changed, because that person might be updated, but you do not keep yourself updated. So that you don't face any kind of such shocks and surprises. Always make sure that you keep your data up to date. So when you collect the data, ensure that cross check that data, make sure that it is up to date and it is accurate till the current time when you are implementing that data in your investigatory report. Moving on to the next tip you have is use both online and offline data. People generally copy just from internet, read newspaper, read magazine, because those things come updated. Every month you have monthly issues, you have daily issues, you have weekly issues of those publications. So they tend to keep the data updated. But internet, you don't tend to check when was that data published. Maybe you are reading an article which was published in 2017, which generally they don't mention. Generally when you go to website, you might not be able to see boldly when that article was published. Maybe when you scroll down, you see in the bottom it was published in 2017. But maybe it will skip your eyes and you will just copy the data. Later you will realize it was an old data. So to avoid all those kind of things, please make sure that you cross check and you always refer to both offline and online data to keep yourself updated related to whatever topics you are working on, or in this case particularly investigatory report that you're preparing on the particular sports that you have taken. After that, collect high resolution images. Now when you implement any pictographical data in your project report, make sure that those images that you collected from the internet are of high resolution. When you import low resolution photos, maybe in your cell phone it looks good, maybe on your small document reader it looks good, but when you print it on a document it may get blurred. This happens when you collect a low resolution photo. Low resolution means blurred photo. Always zoom in and check if the pixel is breaking or if the image is in a good quality. If the resolution of image is good, then only select that image and import that in your project. Otherwise, go for another image. Don't paste any kind of blurred image in your investigatory report. With that said, let's move on to the final record writing guideline here. Write-ups first, diagrams must be on the blank side of the sheet of the record book. Here I am talking about the record book. Write-up should be on the right hand side of rule side of your textbook. Then use white bond paper instead of your flimsy paper. So if you go to any stationery store, you will get A4 size sheet. The regular A4 size sheets are very flimsy and it is very very what do you call it as? It is very weak and it's not strong enough or it's not thick enough. Try to use a bond paper which will be more thick in GSM. Try to use that paper so that your project looks more professional. So it's preferred that you use bond paper, although it's not compulsory and mandatory. That is my recommendation though. Always use bond paper for any kind of such formal presentation. Using of bond paper is important. Then next, keep the fonts formal. Don't use any kind of fancy fonts. It might look good when you are doing some fancy activity or something like that. But here we are talking about your 12th standards final investigatory report. It's a formal document, so you have to maintain the formalness in there. So always use the formal fonts. Some of the known formal fonts are Calibri and Times New Roman. These are the two preferred fonts you must use. Then you have follow uniform format. What do you mean by uniform? Not the one that you put on and go to your school. Not that one. Here uniform basically means what? Everything should be in same look or same format. It shouldn't be like the first 3 chapters has one, you are following one pattern, another 3 chapter you have different design going on there. It should not happen like that. Always make sure that all the chapters and all from the starting to the end you are following the same format and so same arrangement and classification of data over there. The design should be same and it should be uniform. It shouldn't look different in any way. Next you have use page borders. Page borders gives focus to the whole content. When you have page border, gives the whole content inside the border a more impact to it. It's a psychological thing and it's a pictographical thing. Next you have justify the alignment. Now in the Word file you have an option called as left alignment, center alignment, right alignment and justification. Select all body of your data. Here when I'm talking about body means whatever information you're writing about a topic. Title, you must prefer it to be on the middle. Subtopics, you left align it. And the body of that content, that you make sure that it is justified. The alignment should be justified. It should not be left aligned. It should not be right aligned. It should not be center aligned. It should be justified. Keep that in mind. This is very important information. Next, you have use colored font to separate titles from the body. For example, if you are using a bold font for the heading and if you are using a thin font for the body, it separates both of the content. But in case if you are using the same font for the body and for the title of that, make sure you change the color of both. If you're keeping it black, you can change the color of the title into blue or any other color that you want, because that will create a visual separation of your title and your body. So having said that, I hope you understood everything that I taught today and you will follow all the guidelines that I gave and you will incorporate all the small little informations and tips that I gave in your record book and in preparation of your investigatory report. Having said that, this is Rohit once again signing out until next time. Thank you. Goodbye.